The year is 1945. Scientists have been working on a weapon of unprecedented destructive potential. A bomb that could wipe out entire cities in the blink of an eye. They had spent years building to this moment, researching a wide variety of theories of how such a feat could be accomplished. They knew that by tearing apart matter at the subatomic level, they could release enormous energy, and they knew also that it was only a matter of time before this technology was discovered by someone. In this century, only about halfway over, the world had suffered not one, but two global wars. We hear the words World War, and we're used to them. They glide right over us. Most of the people watching this, maybe all of the people watching this, were born after they ended. But take a moment to think about how fucked up that idea really is. The whole world at war. That's a nightmare that our ancestors could not have comprehended. A science fiction doomsday scenario made real. Twice. Naturally, both sides of this war thought it was of paramount importance to throw world-ending weapons into the mix. The Americans got there first, and on the 16th of July, they detonated the world's first atomic weapon. In awe of the terror he had helped unleash upon the Earth, the director of the Los Alamos test site, Robert Oppenheimer, said he was reminded of a quotation from the Bhagavad Gita.
I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
Bruh. Less than a month later, two of these weapons were detonated on Japanese cities, killing roughly 120,000 people, mostly civilians. Contrary to what you probably learned in history class, this was a needless act of brutality. The Japanese army was likely to surrender regardless. And this was simply a naked show of force to frighten the Soviet Union, America's biggest competition on the world stage at the time. It didn't work, of course. After the war, the Soviet Union developed their own atomic bombs, leading to the arms race, where each side developed more and more powerful and abundant atomic weaponry, until they each had the power to end life on Earth several times over. The implications of this were crystal clear. Humanity would need to tone down its violent tendencies, its capacity for war, or risk eradication. But rather than tone it down a scooch, both sides relied on a strategy called mutually assured destruction, reasoning that if either side shot first, the other would automatically retaliate, thereby killing both sides, incentivizing neither to be the one to strike first. The idea of a peaceful solution to this problem, evidently, being too emasculating for them. The year is 1977. A senior scientist, James Black, at Exxon, the world's largest oil and gas company, reports to management that there is considerable evidence that CO2 emissions, like the ones their products create when burned, are increasing the Earth's temperature to a dangerous degree. As time goes on, this evidence becomes irrefutable, and if drastic action is not taken, this trend may present a serious threat to human life on Earth. Once again, the solution is clear. We must rethink our energy usage. We must use less fossil fuels and release less emissions. It could not be more black and white. And since we can't expect a corporation to act outside of its fiduciary obligation to shareholders, we expect the state to intervene. But through an enormous network of disinformation campaigns, bogus think tanks, and good old-fashioned corruption, the oil and gas industry managed to prevent any meaningful action being taken. Meaningful action is still not being taken, even now when we have less than a decade to avoid the worst of the consequences if we are lucky. In public, rich ghouls and policymakers alike claim they don't believe the scientific consensus or don't have a mandate to fix it. In private, they meet with consulting firms to help prepare them and their assets for the apocalypse that they refuse to prevent. The year is 2020. The world is in the grip of the greatest pandemic since the emergence of HIV/AIDS. And like AIDS before it, world leaders have so completely failed to address this crisis, to provide people with any sort of material relief or support, that despite our lives coming to a grinding halt for almost a year now, nearly 1.6 million people have died worldwide. That we know of. And again, the solution could not be more clear. Everyone whose job is not absolutely necessary should be given the material support they need to avoid the public for a few weeks. Everyone whose jobs are absolutely necessary, and anyone else who has to go out in public for some reason, should have access to the personal protective equipment they need. And I pause here because some of you are no doubt asking, how are we going to pay for it? To which I respond, I don't care. It does not matter. Whatever it costs, it's better than the alternative of just letting people who we could protect die. The money that we might have spent on little bits of cloth to cover people's faces and a few provisions and their basic living expenses offers a better ROI than spending it on a funeral. And again, world leaders of every stripe sit on their thumbs and leave us to die. Politicians, businessmen, religious leaders, media figures, if there's even any distinction between these categories anymore, have all decided that protecting their material interests is more important than the necessary work of keeping the rest of us safe. I'm really mad. I'm getting worked up. Let's take a break and look at this photo of Piers Morgan stuffing his mouth, or hate hole, with a donut called Santa's Yum Nut. Let's just enjoy that for a minute. Just drink it in.
These are Santa's Yum Nuts.
I beg your pardon.
Causing a lot of amusement. I think it's Marks and Spencer's are selling Santa's Yum Nuts. They look quite good, actually.
Oh, that'll keep you quiet for a moment.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Okay, back to whatever it is I'm doing here. I became an anarchist in the year 2016. It's embarrassing for me to admit now, but it was the election of Donald Trump that really made me question the neoliberal establishment. At that time, I may have called myself a socialist in a casual conversation, but if you'd really pressed me on what that meant, I would have shrugged and said something along the lines of the Nordic model. I was your typical suck-dem, and I thought that was about as far left as anyone could go. Trump's election shocked me, broke my brain a little bit. It didn't make sense to me. How could people vote for this guy? This guy? How could they not see he was unqualified for office? How could anyone respect the office of president after a butthole like that took the oath? How could cooler heads not prevail? Again, all of this thought process is deeply embarrassing to me now. A few months later, I heard someone on YouTube mention anarchism, which they defined as an objection to all hierarchy, a definition I would later come to find reductive, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I can see the logic in that. On a whim, I Googled it to see what they were talking about, and I thought, oh, how novel. What an interesting idea. This probably won't have a big effect on my life, I said out loud, to no one in particular. But it's interesting. So I started looking for other anarchist YouTubers because that's what I do when I want to learn about something, but I don't want to leave my house or put a lot of effort in. People like Anarcho-Pack and Libertarian Socialist Rants. And it started to make more and more sense to me. And I thought, okay, I don't like this. I don't like that this is making more sense to me. I don't like that I'm getting this from just people on YouTube. Everything these people are saying sounds right, and I want it to. Because if it is right, it means that the systems and institutions that I had ignorantly trusted my entire life are fundamentally illegitimate. So I started reading anarchist books, hoping I would find the thing which made me go, oh, never mind. Never mind, I don't believe this. Anyway, didn't find it. Now don't get me wrong, I found plenty of reasons to despair that we'll ever get what we want. I'm not some fundamentalist. But as a method of analyzing the world and the powers within it, I still see it as the most coherent and holistic viewpoint I've yet found. Anarchists are often referred to as utopians, but I think the people who make that accusation haven't really thought through the anarchist position, because everyone but anarchists believes in the legitimacy of the state. Maybe not the current one, but some kind of state. That means they believe the bulk of the work of ordering the world can be delegated to an outside body, a group of people who will use that power responsibly for the good of all. And sure, every time we've tried it so far, it's led to, shall we say, mixed results. But if we just make a few adjustments here or there, we can get it to work this time. And to me, that idea is unmistakably utopian. The idea that power can ever be used towards what is clearly the necessary end goal of eliminating power is self-defeating. You might say fight fire with fire, but at the end of the day, firefighters have a lot more success using water. Well, howdy, buckaroos. It's me, future editing Matthew, and I realized kind of left out an important point here. Some people are no doubt going to argue that the purpose of the state would be to create the conditions that would allow for a stateless society. Because of the state's superior organizational ability, it allows us to create the conditions that would allow for statelessness. An argument that has never made much sense to me, because if the state's organizational ability is so far superior, why would you ever get rid of it? Like, it's because you're saying that it's better at doing the work. So then you don't really seem to believe you would get rid of it. It's just a weird thing that a lot of people believe, and I don't quite understand. Like, if you said, no, we'll never get rid of it because it rules, I would disagree, but I'd be like, okay, I see your perspective. But if your argument is that because this state is so good at organizing, we couldn't create the stateless society that we want without it, then, like, why will we ever transition to a stateless society if it's, by definition, worse at organizing? Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, now that I've set fire to my comments section, I will return you to past Matt, wallowing in his ignorance. It would be a relief to be wrong, to think that I could trust people with authority and let them figure it all out, to make it not my problem. But the endless parade of monsters, cronies, and quacks that step forth when given the opportunity to apply for this authority show me otherwise. Power attracts people who want power, and those people are the last people who should ever have it. And right now, in the middle of 100 existential crises, as the world hurtles towards oblivion faster and faster, I really don't understand how anyone can remain faithful to the power of the state. I don't see how anyone can believe it's in their best interests to hand over authority to a small group of elites who have demonstrated again and again and again that they do not have our best interests in mind. I can understand being intimidated by the project of taking that power back, though I'd argue it's probably less dangerous than the alternative. But I just can't fathom not wanting it back, to still operate under the assumption that all of this is working, or can work. Some days, it feels like everyone else is insisting that the sky is orange, and I'm the only one looking at this thing and going, yeah, it's blue. One thing makes this a little easier for me, and of course I'm referring to this photo of Piers Morgan, slacking his jaw to gorge himself on Santa's yumnut, imagining his waxy, sallow skin stretching around the curves of Santa's yumnut. The assault of sugary, artificial flavors burning out his senses, the emptiness in his heart, knowing that for all that he thinks he's accomplished, for how seriously he takes himself, he's never more than one producer's note away from having to hawk a meme donut with a sex name and shove it in his gormless face, dancing like a trained monkey for the camera. That makes things a little easier. If you don't mind, I would like to just sit with this image for a while, and then we'll move on to the eyeball zone. Hello, and welcome to the eyeball zone. Here in the eyeball zone, we put eyeballs on small leftist projects that deserve to be seen almost as much as this photo of Piers Morgan. Anyway, have you ever heard of Smengoose? An indigenous Christian anarchist society in the remote mountains of Taiwan? That feels like a thing I would have heard about at some point, but I sure didn't until I saw this video by Veritas Certum. I read the title, and when it said, Successful Indigenous Christian Anarchism in Taiwan, I thought, no. What? No way. Surely this is an exaggeration. This combination of words makes no sense to me. What series of historical developments would possibly make an indigenous group in Taiwan of all places adopt not only anarchism, but specifically Christian anarchism? To put it mildly, Christianity does not have a very pleasant history of interaction with indigenous people. So why would a group of indigenous people who also believe in libertarian values maintain that particular religion? And the answers to that question are fascinating, and I highly recommend you watch this video to get a glimpse into how these elements converge. As always, link in the description, as well as a master list of all previous victims of Lord Oculon's Army of the Damned. Do you have a small leftist project you believe is almost as worthy of eyeballs as this photo of Piers Morgan eating Santa's yumnut? Send no more than one email to thoughtslimeeditor@gmail.com with the word eyeballs somewhere in the description and pertinent details like your pronouns, and perhaps you too will find yourself trapped here in the eyeball zone. Thanks for watching this video that I made because I was working on a different video and I got too frustrated. If you liked it, thank you. That's nice. Thank you for liking my video. And you've already done enough for me by doing that. Thank you. But if you wouldn't mind, if you could also hit the like button, that'd be neat for me, and I would like it. No pressure. You can also subscribe here to get more videos like this every Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you'd like to hear more of my thoughts, but less about politics and more about horror movies, if you specifically want that, you can find that at youtube.com/scaredycatstv, where I upload a video about a horror movie every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Maybe you just want to hang out with me virtually, and like in a parasocial way that I can exploit for money. You can do that every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I stream on YouTube and Twitch. And that is part of my sleazy operation over here. If you didn't see my last video, I'm not wearing this hat to imitate Tim Pool. It's because I shaved my head and I don't like how it looks. I don't want to look at it while I'm editing. All right, mystery solved. This last part of the video is only for Piers Morgan. If you're not Piers Morgan, don't watch. How'd that nut do? How you like that yum nut, pal? You like that? How'd that taste? You like it, bud? Let me know.